Hello mathematicians! Today we're going to be learning about whole numbers, more specifically how to divide by two-digit numbers. In this video, our answers will have a remainder, and we'll also learn how to write our remainder as a decimal. To get us started, we have 75 divided by 29. Now we're going to write this using long division. And since 75 is our dividend, that will go on the inside, and since 29 is our divisor, that will go on the outside. First, we're going to see how many times 29 goes into 7, and well, it doesn't. And then we're going to see how many times 29 goes into 75, and it goes into 75 two whole times. And that's because 29 times 2 is equal to 58. Now we're going to write our 58 underneath our 75 and subtract these two values. And so 75 minus 58 is equal to 17. And now we have a remainder of 17, but we're not going to stop there. We're actually going to add a decimal place and a 0 behind 75. And we're going to add a decimal place behind 2 because now our number is not going to be a whole number. It's going to be a fraction of a whole number that we're representing as a decimal. All right, so we're going to bring down this 0 that we've added, and now we have 170. And then we're going to see how many times does 29 go into 170. And the answer to that is 5 times. And that's because 29 times 5 is equal to 145, and that's as close as we can get without passing 170. So we're going to write that value down, and we are going to subtract these two values. 170 minus 145 is equal to 25. So what we're going to do, because we still have a remainder, is add another 0. And we're going to bring it down. So now we have 250, and we're going to see how many times does 29 go into 250. And the answer to that would be 8 times, because 29 times 8 equals 232. And that's as close as we could get without passing 250. And we're going to write that value down, and we're going to subtract. So 250 minus 232 is equal to 18. Now we're going to add one more 0. Typically we go to the thousands place, and then we round to the nearest hundreds to just get an estimate of our decimal if it does keep going. So we're going to add a 0, we're going to bring it down, and then we're going to see how many times does 29 go into 180. And that would be 6 times, because 29 times 6 is equal to 174. We're going to write that down, and we are going to subtract. And we get 6. Because it looks like this number will keep going, we're going to take the number we have and round it to the nearest hundreds. So the 6 does round the 8 up to a 9, so 75 divided by 29 is about 2 59/100. All right? And so we're going to move on to our next example, which is 494 divided by 52. And we're going to set this up using long division. So 494 is our dividend, so that does go on the inside, and 52 is our divisor, so that will go on the outside. We're going to see how many times 52 goes into 4. And, well, it doesn't. So we're going to see how many times 52 goes into 49. And, again, it doesn't. And then we're going to see how many times 52 goes into 494, which it does 9 times. And that's because 52 times 9 is equal to 468. We're going to write that value down, and we are going to subtract. 494 minus 468 is equal to 26, and we have a remainder. However, we want to see what this is in decimal form, so we are going to add a decimal and a 0 behind 494, and we're going to bring up our decimal 2 behind 9, because again, whatever number we get now is not going to be a whole number. We're going to bring down our 0. And we're going to see how many times does 52 go into 260. And the answer to that is 5 times. And that's because 52 times 5 is equal to 260. So we're going to write that down, and we are going to subtract. And we get 0, so we could just stop there. So 494 divided by 52 is equal to 9 5/10. All right? And our final example, 4,032 divided by 83. 4,032 is our dividend, so that goes on the inside, and 83 is our divisor, so that goes on the outside. And first we're going to see how many times 83 goes into 4, and well, it doesn't. We're going to see how many times 83 goes into 40, and again, it doesn't. And so we're going to see how many times does 83 go into 403, and it does 4 times, and that's because 83 times 4 is equal to 332. We're going to take those values and we are going to subtract. 403 minus 332 is equal to 71. And we're going to bring down the 2. So we have 712. And then we're going to see how many times does 83 go into 712. And that would be 8 times, because 83 times 8 is equal to 664. We're going to add our number here and we are going to subtract. All right, 712 minus 664 is equal to 48. And so that is our remainder. However, we want to see what this is in decimal form, so we are going to add a decimal and a 0 up here and a decimal after the 48. And we're going to bring down this 0 so we can keep going. So now we need to see how many times does 83 go into 480. And that would be 5 times, because 83 times 5 is equal to 415. We're going to write that value down and we are going to subtract. 480 minus 415 is equal to 65. Now we still have a remainder, so we're going to keep going, add a 0, and bring it down. So we have 650, and we're going to see how many times does 83 go into 650. And that would be 7 times, because 83 times 7 is equal to 581. And that's as close as we could get without passing 650. We're going to write it down and subtract our 2 values. So 650 minus 581 is equal to 69. We're going to add one more 0, and if this keeps going, we're just going to round to the nearest hundreds. Add a 0. We're going to bring it down. So we have 690. How many times does 83 go into 690? And that would be 8, because 83 times 8 is equal to 664. So we're going to write that down and subtract. 690 minus 664 is equal to 26. It looks like this is going to keep going, so we're going to estimate this to our nearest hundreds. So if we round that, we end up with 4,032 divided by 83 equals to 48 58/100ths, all right? And so that's it for dividing by 2-digit numbers and writing it in decimal form.